Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about what are the top 5 websites that I recommend for finding information on quality and regulatory for medical devices. And keep in mind, this is specific to medical device companies. So if your company is a drug company, a biologic company, an IVD company, some of this might not be pertinent to you. In the IVD, maybe, but the other two probably not helpful. So if you're a device company, this is definitely for you. And as I go through this, I'm going to share some websites and I will include them in the description of the video below on our YouTube channel. We stream on multiple channels, but I put all the postings to the YouTube channel just to minimize the number of postings that I have to do. So if you want to find these links, go to our YouTube channel for Medical Device Academy. So I'm going to add sharing my screen here so you can see. Okay. So you should be able to see. Actually, I'm going to try sharing this a different way because I can't be sure that it's sharing properly. There we go. And change how it's presenting. There we go. So now you should be able to see pretty well on the screen our website page. This is what I would think most people would expect me to answer this question with, like 5 websites that are out there that are forums or chat rooms where they can get the information that they need. And I already addressed this in a blog posting, so I wanted to cover that first. And then I'm going to cover the 5 places that I personally would look instead. So this is what most people would do. They would go to a site. A lot of people now are using ChatGPT, OpenAI as a source of information. And yes, those chatbots are able to go out there and search the internet and gather information for you and then present it back to you in something that sounds perfectly intelligible. It probably writes better than most people that write blogs. However, it's not always accurate information. It will take pieces and it will add stuff in and it sounds good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's accurate. So you actually need to be an expert on this to vet the information. And that's what the different chat rooms or forums will do. They'll have people post information, post questions, and then it needs to be vetted by people that are moderators. And that's what Ellesmere Cove does. And I've written about them before, but I wrote an updated blog in 2023 about OpenAI and Ellesmere Cove. It's not that I don't like using those tools. I use those tools, but you have to vet that information properly to make sure it's accurate, because everything that you're doing can change. The answer changes if you have inaccurate information. So I explain what different things that I'm using in ChatGPT or OpenAI. I show you links to Ellesmere Cove, and then I give you an example of information and show you how it may or may not be accurate, depending on what information you're getting. But generally, they'll get you to the answer you want if it's a fairly generic question. If it's a very specific question, it might not always give you the correct information, or more likely, it's going to give you outdated information. Just like doing a search engine search in like Google, you're going to find the thing that has the most hits, not necessarily the thing that's the most accurate or the most up-to-date. So you need to know where to find the most up-to-date information. So that's one of the things here. For our company, what I have done, and I always did this as a consultant, even way back in the early, even before 2000, before people were even having their own websites much, I had a website much earlier than most companies. And this is like my 5th company that's had one. So when you go to our website, we have this link up at the top right that says regulatory requirements. So I'm going to change my link to that, and I'm going to have to update my sharing. So I will do that right now. Stop, present, share. Okay, so now I'm sharing that again. So this page has regulatory requirements for Europe, USA, Canada, and globally. And I organize it into sections. So your EU regulatory requirements. Now, I don't update this all the time, so sometimes these get out of date. And it's possible that if I click on this link, it might be a dead link. So it's slow to load, but it is taking us to earmed.org, and it is showing you information on earnet.org. In earnet, it was, sorry, earmed, not earnet. Earmed is the European Association of Authorized Representatives. And I don't know, because of the way I'm doing the sharing, if you can actually see the link that I clicked on, but I'm going to go back. So there are links for many different websites here for Europe. The ones that I use the most for Europe are the MDCG guidance documents and the revision to the EU medical device regulations. The revisions to the EU device regulations, that's going to take you to the EMDR and the IVDR. So those are the two current regulations for devices and IVDs. And then the MDCG guidance document, I've run into companies that didn't even think that was required, but it is. These are official guidance documents from the Medical Device Coordinating Group, which is for all of Europe. And they have different member state representatives that get together in these committees and decide on what will be the content and revise and edit the content for new guidance documents. And those are the official interpretations of what's in the regulations and providing you updated information that isn't in the actual regulation itself. So it might be forms that you need, it might be website links you need. So that's where you would find that information. The Europa website in general is the place that you're going to go. There's a NANDO database, NANDO, for finding information about notified bodies and who are the notified bodies. You can sort that by different specialties. So if you're working on IVDs, only certain notified bodies will be on the list for NANDO for IVDs. If you have software as a medical device, only certain ones will be able to do software as a medical device. If you have sterile products, only certain ones can do sterile products. If you have animal tissues, human tissues, if you have a cardiac device that interacts with the heart in some way, those are all going to be different specialties, and they have different codes. And each notified body has to become qualified in that code. And one of the most difficult things to get qualified on is the clinical evaluation piece. So if they don't have a clinical evaluation specialist that knows about that clinical area, then they can't become a notified body for that code, or can't remain a notified body for that code. So they have to maintain that. So this is the source that I go to for your European information, and I put those hyperlinks in the European regulations section. The next section that I have is US regulations. And so for US regulations, typically where I'm going there is I go to FDA.gov, then I click on the menu, top right button, takes me to a menu. I click on medical devices, and then at the bottom of that page, there's all the FDA databases. And I bookmark that page, and I go to it every single day. And I've showed it in tons of our different YouTube videos, but you can find it yourself as the database search tool. You can find it just by clicking on the CDRH databases link that I have on our website as well. There are sub-databases that I use that are from that page a lot: the classification database, the registration listing database, the recognized standards database, the MAUD database, the TPLC database, the 510K database. You get the idea. So we use that set of FDA databases for devices all the time. The next one is Canadian. So whenever I have, and we also do Canadian licensing submissions and MDSAP and MDEL, MDAL. So MDEL is medical device establishment licenses. That's for class 1 devices. And then we do MDAL, which is MDALL. That's for class 2, 3, and 4 distribution licenses. And we do both types of submissions. We help with MDSAP. I used to be a Canadian auditor as well when I worked for BSI. So we learned what resources you go get on the Canadian website. So you would keep links on that website there. One of the most common ones was, how much does it cost? How long does it take? Well, that information could be found on the Canadian website. They have guidance documents there. So they have excellent guidance documents for recalls, post-market surveillance. If you need help writing those procedures, go look at those guidance documents and plagiarize. Use a lot of content from those guidance documents that Health Canada has on how to do a recall, how to do a mock recall, how to do post-market surveillance activities, how to write a post-market surveillance update report, a PSUR that's required for Europe. Europe doesn't provide the best guidance document on how to do that. Canada does. So Canada has some really great guidance documents that you should look at. There's also a link on there for a list of recognized registrars. Those are the 15 registrars, and I think it's still 15, but it might have grown. 15 registrars that are recognized auditing organizations for MDSAP, or the Medical Device Single Audit Program. That's what you need if you want to get MDSAP certified, which is a special type of ISO 13485. So that's where I go for Canadian information. I also do license searches for the MDAL and MDEL. So we provide links for that as well. A lot of times I know exactly where to find it using a Google search as well. So sometimes it's fewer clicks for me to just open up a browser and type in MDEL search, and I find it right away, or MDAL. But for other things, like the list of recognized registrars, it might be faster for me to look here. If I want to find the application fee, it's faster for me to find it here. So it depends on which one I think will be faster. But these links I try to keep up to date. There are also MDSAP information. I believe MDSAP is now on version 9 of the audit approach document. So if you're still working on 7 or 8, you're out of date and you need to update that. You should be looking at that frequently for MDSAP. So in general, all these types of searches, these are things that are on our website. And once again, the link at the top is this regulatory requirements. It's medicaldeviceacademy.com/regulatory-requirements. And that's where we keep the links. If you have a suggestion for a link, go to our suggestion portal and put it in there, and we'll add it to the page if we think it's a good link to add. If you see a broken link or an out-of-date link, let us know and we'll update that. But periodically I go through the list and I update the list. That takes care of more the consulting websites. Where I would go, I go to our own website, and that website is organized by sections. That's what I would consider best practices out there. And you can do it internally. You can have your own company intranet, and you can have a web page with all the helpful links that you need so you could find that. So if you gave, like if you created a Word document or you created a Google Drive document and you put all the hyperlinks on there and you gave it to your web administrator could add that on a, not on a publicly tracked page. You wouldn't want to have this be indexed, but it would be helpful to your company internally to have just the ones that you're going to use, and it would speed up your auditing process. So that would be what I would recommend. Now, what would be the other categories that I would look at other than websites that are created by consultants or forums or chat groups? So I would look at the actual regulator websites. So I talked about the FDA's one, fda.gov. They have a list of CDRH standards. That would be my number one for regulators. Europa has one for MDCG guidance documents. There I would look for that regulator. Canada has one for guidance documents. I would look on that one. But that's just regulators. And it doesn't even cover the most obvious one that you should be looking at, which would be IMDRF. So I will find that one for us. IMDRF.org. Okay, here is the IMDRF website. It's imdrf.org, and they have lots of different links at the top. The working groups are probably where you want to start, or the search button at the top right. The search button at the top right can help you find different things, but they actually have in that IMDRF website different guidance documents that were created historically for the Global Harmonization Task Force, and then new updated documents that are for IMDRF. Among those is a guidance document that tells you what they recommend to include in your medical device files. So a medical device file is required in 4.2.3 and ISO 1345, and then it's also part of your design history requirements in 7.3. At the very end, I think it's 7.3.10. So when you create a medical device file, that's a living document. Historically, the FDA referred to it as a design history file. That's going to go away in February of next year, and they're going to adopt the medical device file term instead. And they're not going to define a design history file anymore. They're not going to define a device master record, which would be a DMR. Those regulations go away, those definitions go away, and instead they're adopting what's in 1345, which is a medical device file. And you should have it as a living document, and you should keep track of the history of revisions that you've made. So a lot of people are like, well, we have to have the history of revisions. That makes it a separate document. No, it doesn't have to. You can have your medical device file be an index and have a revision history to it, and then it meets all the requirements. It shows you the history of all the changes you made, and it shows you the current version. And it doesn't have to be all in one physical binder or one virtual binder. It can be an index that links you to multiple places all over your internal intranet or SharePoint or whatever you're using. So an index is the best practice. In general, in an index, I would organize your index according to the requirements in that IMDRF document. So when you're looking up what is required for technical documentation, that's a great source. So go to the IMDRF website. Now that takes care of regulators. The next one that we're going to cover is standards. So when I'm looking for standards, a lot of people have their different preferred websites where they like to find standards. And I'm going to stop sharing on the that and go back to sharing. Okay. So when I am talking about standards, my favorite place to look is evs.ee. It's an Estonian standards website, and any European norm would be there for very inexpensive fees. And I usually get the multi-user license so we can use it for our team. Now, if your company can't find the standard you're looking for because it's not a European standard, other places that I would look. Second place I always look is the AAMI website. So AAMI.org. AAMI is the official standards organization, or one of the official standards organizations for the US, but it specializes in medical device standards. There's ANSI as another source, ANSI, there's ASTM. So there's multiple standards organizations in the US, but that particular one, AAMI.org, makes standards that are for medical devices, and they collaborate with other standards organizations in the US for other standards that might be cross-cutting to other disciplines, such as other types of devices that might have cybersecurity issues, not just devices, it could be other products. The third place that I would go, if I can't find it in evs.ee, if I can't find it in aami.org, the third place that I'll go, oh, and one more point on the AAMI, make sure you have a member's discount, because even though I don't buy all my standards there, I more than pay for the annual membership through the standards discounts alone. And then on top of that, they give you a newsletter and they give you a magazine. So there's a lot of sources there. And if you're a member, you can also participate in their forum or chat room. So you can ask questions there. And the people there they're going to be answering are going to usually be very knowledgeable moderators. They might even be the people that wrote the standards. Like I've seen comments in there for people like Edwin Bills and Leo Eisner, who are conveners of standards or on the committee that wrote the standard. Then The last place that I'll look if I can't find it in those places is then I will go to ISO.org, and that'll give me international standards that are not found on websites or the European websites. So occasionally I'll find a technical report or a guidance that will be there. The next category of resources that I look at for QARA is the certification bodies themselves. You should always be up to date on what your certification body is providing, but there are different levels of certification bodies, and they're going to share different things related to the standards. So, and they all have different ways that they're providing customer service, and you want to check out what they have available. It might be free to you. It might be free to everybody. For the lowest level of certification bodies, I look at the ones like Eagle certification group that would generally do certifications. Then the next level up would be notified bodies. So these would be all the notified bodies in NANDO. And then the third level up, the highest level of certification body, these would be the 15 MD-SAP organizations. So in general, the subset that is, all of them are going to be certification bodies, but only some of them are both MD-SAP and notified bodies. And that subgroup is the group that I generally recommend for our clients. But any of those organizations on any of the three groups can be a source of information depending on what information you're looking for. They almost all have newsletters. They almost all have blogs. Some of them have virtual meetings. Some of them have physical meetings where they invite their customers. Some of them offer training courses to people, and they will sometimes notify you. They'll send out emails, hey, this has been updated. You need to be recertified to this new standard. So you want to be aware of that happening with the different certification bodies. I actually used to teach some of those courses. I've gone to them when I was younger and I was just learning. I would go to the different certification bodies forums. The FDA even has one. They have something called a READY conference, REDI, that's very similar, where they notify you of new FDA changes. So all of these certification bodies and the regulators typically have newsletters, forums, email notifications. You can sign up for these email notifications for the FDA, for Canada, for Europe, with your notified body, with your certification body. And with the standards organizations, they'll even send out email notifications of changes as well. And I mentioned AAMI has their own magazine and newsletter. So lots of sources of additional information there. The next one that I would look at is really the last one on the list. It's first party and second party websites. So if you're doing a first party audit, that's auditing your own company. So I mentioned you would have your own company intranet. If you're not head of regulatory and you're not making the list of items on that page, keeping up to date what's on that page is important, because somebody that's above you in your organization said, hey, I updated the website. You need to be trained on this link here. So there might be important information on that page. As a consultant, I ask to follow our clients in different social media. Like I'll go into LinkedIn and I'll connect to that company by following their webpage. So whenever they have updates on LinkedIn, I get notified of that. It does create a lot of not so important information updates, but it also makes me aware of some of the things that might be important. So it gives me a lot more volume of information than I want. But every once in a while, I get lucky and I get some useful information that's really important about something that's going on with one of our clients. So that's a great source. And then whenever I'm going to be preparing for a conversation with that client, I might go to that social media page and look at their recent updates and see what's going on with the company. Maybe they launched a new product. So with your customers, look at their website pages. Follow their company on social media and be aware of what your customers and suppliers are going to be having. So that goes for suppliers as well. So second party is upstream or downstream. So those are the basic 5 areas that I look at. I look at websites that are created by consultants or forums that have useful information in my area. Ellesmere Cove is one. Our website is one. Other consultants have them. Leo Eisner has a great blog page that I would take a look at. So those are some of the sources. Then the next would be the regulators themselves, one for each country. The standards organizations, I walk you through the different priorities that I would put there. The certification bodies, the different levels of certification bodies, and then your internal website, as well as your customers' websites and your suppliers' websites. So that's the overall list. Now we're going to get to some of our questions here. So we'll go to this one first that people put up here for us. So Kishore says, which certification helps for you to become a quality auditor in medical devices? So quality auditors, there is an actual international standard for this. It's ISO 19011. The most current version of that is the 2018 version of that standard. So I might be able to post my own comment here. ISO 19011, 2018. Yep, so I can actually put that in there myself. So that's the standard there that you should be looking at for certification as an auditor. There are lead auditor courses and there are internal auditor courses or supplier auditor courses. There are even a few organizations out there like ours that have created remote auditing courses as well that teach you specifically how to do remote audits. I was actually one of the people with Greg Scalise that created the BSI auditing course. They had an existing course and we updated that and improved it substantially. And then shortly after we made that update, they made it a TPEX course and we got involved in the TPEX program, and that's still being used today. It was just a different strategy than the strategy they used originally. The second audit program that I created was my own audit program for my company, and I taught that to several different companies. The next one after that was for AAMI. We taught a lead auditor course for that, created all the material for it, and AAMI teaches that. And then more recently, we're in the process of updating our own training again. So there's always different training programs out there, but you want to look for a lead auditor course, and you want to make sure for medical devices it covers ISO 13485, 2016, which is the current standard. It would be good to ask questions like, are you going to cover the updates that are occurring with the FDA switching over to the QMSR? Another thing to look at is, are you going to cover the MDR for Europe? Are you going to cover Brexit? Are you going to cover MDSAP? So there's a lot of things that could be covered. But in general, most of the lead auditor courses just focus on 1345. And it helps you if you already know a lot about 1345 before you take the class, then you're not learning as the basics. Okay, somebody else here put in the comment, thank you for the great overview of the resource. I'll definitely check out the sites you suggested and have added your MDA regulatory requirements website. Thank you for that. So you're very welcome. Kishore said thank you as well. And then we have an earlier question that I didn't answer because it was in the middle of presenting, but I will answer that question now. So Mukesh says, I want to sell a medical device, embedded device, which measures lead level in the blood non-invasively. The process is like a glucose meter in the US market. What standard do I have to follow for this? So what's not clear from the description here, they said it's non-invasive, but they also said it's like a glucose meter in the US. A glucose meter in the US is actually taking finger pricks. So it's an IVD device. It is invasive because you use a lancet and you get a drop of blood, but it's from capillary blood and it's done in vitro, not real time on the patient. You're using a specimen, drop of blood. So if it's a drop of blood to measure lead levels, something like that would either be a class 1 IVD or it'd be a class 2 IVD. I'm not sure which. I'd have to do the lookup on that. And I'm not even sure if they do have a lead level test that's in vitro diagnostic. I'm assuming that they do because people get lead poisoning and they need testing for that. And it would be blood testing typically. So I'm I would be willing to bet there's a standard for it. I mean, sorry, a product code for that. I just don't know what it is, and I'd have to look it up. But the place to look is in the classification database. So the FDA, they actually have as one of those many CDRH databases, it's the classification one, and you'd look that up. But if your device is looking at this like an optical method, where it's looking through the skin more like a pulse oximeter, that would be a very different type of test. And I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't exist on the market yet and would require more of a de novo. So, but I'm assuming, since they said it's more like a glucose monitor, this is probably a capillary stick. And so the Lancet is now a class 2 device that requires a 510K. So unless you want to make your own Lancet, you would recommend a Lancet specifying what drop size you need. And then on top of that, you would have to have your own reader and your own strip. You collect the drop of blood, and then you measure that. If it's going to be an OTC product, then you'd want to have something that has auto calibration. If you have a prescription only device that's going to be used, then it could be calibrated by the user, maybe the doctor, and you'd normally have a sample specimen that would have a known quantity of lead in it, and you calibrate it against that and then test your blood. So that would definitely be a way. And then, of course, there are lab tests that would be used that would be far more accurate than a simple blood test that you would do. The blood test wouldn't be the best way to, like a home blood test for lead wouldn't probably be the best way to do it, because if you do it incorrectly, you may have a high lead level in your blood and not realize it because you did the test incorrectly. So better off to go to a doctor and have the blood drawn and have them test for the lead. But I could see the benefit of and the desire for people to be able to home test. They don't have to go to the doctor, and it might cost less. It's just a matter of how the FDA would regulate that. It would have to be auto calibration if it's going to be an OTC test. So I hope I answered your question on that particular item. No, we have some other questions here. I guess getting up and doing the earlier calls, we get a lot more comments here. So thank you very much. So there's a comment here. Notified bodies require extensive training in several basic biocom, clinical, sterilization, etc., to certify you as their auditor, and the training must be maintained. So there are two different types of auditors that we could be talking about here. We could be talking about somebody that's working for a notified body. So they're a third-party auditor, which is what I used to be. And you're correct. You have to maintain your training on that. And they have to go back for recertification frequently. And they also have to have 5 years of experience working for a company doing design of medical devices before they can do that. There's also additional training that you do internally as a notified body auditor. So I don't know exactly how many trainings I did, but it was well over 100 trainings in the first 9 months of working for BSI. So definitely, they don't necessarily have you training in all areas at BSI, because they split up their training into microbiology audits, operations audits, which is the quality system, and then technical file audits. And so not all the people are trained in CE marking, not all the people are trained in microbiology, because they have specialty audits on that. And so therefore, sterilization might not be something you need a lot of training on at all at BSI. Whereas the other notified bodies, they would require that you be trained in all those areas, and they want auditors that can do all things. So they have more flexibility in scheduling. So you want an auditor in those cases that does know microbiology, does know sterilization, does know technical files. I'm one of those rare people that covers all of the spectrum, because I have a lot of micro background before I got into medical devices. And I've done a lot of technical files over the years. So I can do all three, but very few people can. And that is part of the notified body training. That's not part of being a lead auditor in a company, though. You can have specialists in your company. You can divide up the job. So you can just have one person that their expertise is auditing, and they're the audit program manager. And they have another person that solely their expertise is sterilization validation. So that is something that can happen in an internal company. There was a question here. So does Medical Device Academy have a notified body approved trainings? So we don't offer the notified body trainings. I develop those with notified body auditors. They're actually fairly simple trainings that involve multiple choice questions, and the slides aren't as updated as they could be. Once they get those courses certified, they don't update the content as frequently as they could. So one of the things that is just a constant struggle for anybody that does training material, it's the regulations change constantly. So you have to update your material. The better courses have been updated recently. So I can't really point out like this notified body is good and this notified body is bad. It's when did they do their last update of the training material is the key question. If it's been a while since it's been updated, you might want to look somewhere else because it's probably out of date material. Also, it depends on the instructor. As an instructor, when I saw a slide that had out of date information, I'm like, this is what the official slide says, but here's more up to date information. And I would show them that information, where I found it, what the source was. But I had that skill and I had that knowledge. Not every instructor has that. Some of them just present what the slides are. And when I was done with the training, I also had notes that I had made, and I would give that to the organization, say, hey, we need to update the following slides. And that's why Gary and I were two of the instructors that were the best instructors that were teaching this material, because we were constantly updating the material and making sure it's up to date. Not everybody does that. But no, I don't. Our company doesn't offer a notified bodies approved training. Not all the notified bodies offer approved training or accredited training. There is an accreditation organization that you can get accredited for lead auditor training. So I think that's it for the questions that I see in the chat. I'm glad we had a really animated question period today, and thank you for your comments. Anybody that is interested in suggesting links for our website, as I said, put that in the chat for the YouTube channel. And if you have questions about a lead auditor course, please go to our contact us page and send an email to Lindsay or schedule a meeting with Lindsay and let her know, because we are planning on doing a lead auditor course here in the near future. And we can put you on a list of people that are interested. So we'll let you know as soon as the course is available and you can start taking the courses live. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great day. And if you found this helpful, please share it with your colleagues. Have a great day and see you next week. Bye-bye.